I am here with Danica Joan, founder of the Hope for Families platform and Kids Need Both. Danica, thank you for joining me on this live stream.
Well, thank you for asking me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So the reason I asked Danica here is we have an event coming up on the 27th called Hope for Healing, and Danica is leading a panel in particular to bring healing to families and relationships. And I'll put up at the bottom, if you want to register for this event, the link. But we're having this conversation to really get to the bottom of what's going on with families. And we have a weekly meeting on Mondays, and we were just talking about how families are literally at the crossroad of everything. You know, if it's drug addiction, if it's men, women, how we be in relationships later on in life. And I just wanted to have this conversation with Danica about how just transforming the domain of families, what would be possible for everything else if we could just address this one core issue.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you're right. I mean, the core of society is rooted in family. When we come to this world, that's the first society that we get the experience of is family. And then that has an impact on how we relate to people in our at the community level and globally. So it's very important.
Yeah, no, it is very important. And I think one of the connections we were recognizing is how that really spills over to our relationships. Like there's like a generational trauma that just kind of, if we don't do our part to get to the bottom of what doesn't work, what didn't work for us and our relationship and our families, it kind of spills over to the next generation and so on and so forth. And if we could just interrupt that and insert healthy communication patterns, because how much of it is really just communication patterns? Like if people just knew how to communicate, the whole world of it would be totally different.
So when you think about it, as humans, consider that when we come into this world, we're like a brand new cell phone right off the factory floor. And there's some things that are programmed in it, kind of like, we have certain DNA that we come into this world, but nothing, but it isn't, it's the programming. It's when we come into that world, the parents, they use their programming programs us and customizes us. And that's how it is that we might get faulty programming from our parents who had faulty programming, and it just keeps continuing on. And it isn't until we interrupt that program and we recognize it for how it is and how its predictable future, if it continues going down in that design, that interruption allows us to create something new.
And a lot of that, it sounds like the first step is just awareness, just recognizing a pattern for what it is, whether it's a pattern in your own life or a pattern like, wow, I'm doing what my parents did, and just stopping and taking a look at it and even having an authentic conversation where it's like, hey, I'm actually noticing there's this lineage of this behavior that doesn't work.
And the worst thing we can do is to be stuck in, I'm the victim of, I am the result of someone else's actions, because as long as you don't take any responsibility for the way you're being or how you've gotten to where you've gotten, then you also have no need to change anything, to shift that the future at that point. So it's very important. That's something that I work with families is, what can you own? What can you own about your life and the choices that you made, instead of living in the sewage of I married a jerk, or it's not my fault, or I had a terrible childhood. As long as you live in that sewage, there is no possibility.
Do most parents, are they aware when they're living out these patterns and now they're imparting it on their children, that they're literally, when they're in it, are they even usually aware of it when they're triggered?
They're really not. I think that's just human nature, is when we're triggered by something. I mean, and I always say that if something's triggering you, see it as a red flag. because we don't notice everything. The things that grab our attention are the things that are important to us. Consider that just recently I entertained the thought of getting a 4-door truck. Never saw 4-door trucks driving around. Now I see them everywhere because that's a trigger for me. That's something that's important to me. And it may be something that is important to me because I want it, but it might be something that is important to me because I hate it. Like having had a parent that was domineering and controlling, and so now everybody who has a hint of that is like, it's screaming at you. And then of course it's not me, it's all those other people that are to blame. So yeah,
Cool.
just understanding how the mind works, and understanding that if somebody is triggering you, understand that, like when you have a bad breakup in a marriage, and you're like, man, this person's this way, this person's a narcissist, this person's unethical, and blah, blah, blah. If you ask 10 people who know that person, there'll be many of them that that's not how that person it's not how they see that person.
So I'm really hearing like responsibility means like owning ourselves and our interpretations and being responsible for how we're being with people, that instead of the blame victim, like look at what they're doing, it's what is my role in the situation and how can I influence the part of this that I'm in control of rather than expecting them to be the one to change.
That's right. That's right. And I totally get that. If you are, that's something to look at too, that if you somehow feel like you are being taken advantage of, or somebody is crossing their boundaries with you in whatever way, you can still look at them, the good in them, but you have to be vigilant to make sure that you protect yourself from not choosing to be victimized or to be taken advantage of or whatever. And it's not mean to say no.
Awesome. Well, Danica, I think we planted some seeds of topics out here, and what we want to invite is, on June 27th, Sunday, Danica has a families panel amidst a whole bunch of other panels talking about healing for recovery, for men, for women, unity, etc. And I just really want to stand that this is one of the most important conversations to get. And if you have a family, which I assert most all of us came from somewhere, that this is a thing to get aware of and present to, and to really interrupt, so that way the next generation doesn't have to know the same problems and breakdowns that we've had to deal with.
And don't forget, we also have breakout rooms. We have breakout rooms too, so that if you really want live coaching, we have a coaching breakout room for people, so that they can hopefully get some things settled, like right here, right now, next on Sunday.
Yeah, so it's not just informational, it's totally experiential, where you can really bring your life in a private setting and get what you need to have a breakthrough. So thanks for reminding me, Danica. That was an important one.
Yeah.
So we'll look forward to seeing you guys then. Thank you, Danica, and we'll talk soon.
Awesome.